The air is heavy here, a weight pressing down, not just from the humidity. It's the weight of forgotten memories, of pain and madness left to fester. Cranbrook Mental Hospital, they call it cursed, haunted, a place where the broken went to be forgotten. And now, I'm here to see if the stories are true. This place has called to me for years, the stories whispered in hushed tones, legends of the patients and the horrors they endured, stories of the doctors, driven to the brink themselves, their methods as twisted as the minds they sought to heal. I've seen the pictures, grainy and faded, of hollow-eyed patients staring from barred windows, their faces etched with a terror that transcends time. I'm drawn to places like this. Places where the veil between our world and the next wears thin. Places where the echoes of suffering linger, whispering their tales to anyone brave enough or foolish enough to listen. I've spent years investigating the paranormal, chasing shadows and seeking answers. But Cranbrook feels different. There's a rawness here, a palpable sense of unease that sets my teeth on edge. My hand instinctively reaches for the crucifix beneath my shirt, a small comfort in the face of the unknown. The iron feels cold against my skin, a stark reminder of the darkness I'm about to confront. The iron gates groan, a metallic shriek that seems to echo through the very foundation of the asylum. They haven't swung open in decades, judging by the rust-eaten hinges and the vines that snake around them like skeletal fingers. Nature is slowly reclaiming this place, swallowing the man-made horrors with creeping tendrils of green. My boots crunch on the gravel driveway, each step sending a shiver up my spine. The main building looms ahead, a gothic monstrosity of crumbling stone and shattered windows. It's a testament to madness, a monument to despair. The closer I get, the heavier the atmosphere becomes, thick with a silence that feels almost predatory. I can almost hear the screams, the cries for help, echoing through the empty corridors. I can almost see the shadows of patients, their faces contorted in anguish, their bodies racked with unimaginable pain. The air itself feels thick with their suffering, a tangible presence that sends a cold dread creeping into my heart. This isn't just a building, it's a tomb, a repository of broken minds and shattered souls, and I'm about to step inside. The air inside is stale and cold, heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic, like old blood. The only light comes from the occasional broken window, casting long, skeletal fingers of light across the dusty floor. Every sound is magnified in the silence. The creak of the floorboards beneath my feet, the rustle of unseen things in the shadows. The main corridor stretches ahead of me, seemingly endless in the gloom. It's lined with doors, each one a silent sentinel guarding the secrets of the patients who once resided here. I can almost hear their whispers, their moans, echoing through the empty halls. It's as if the very walls themselves are trying to tell me something, to warn me away. But I'm drawn deeper into the asylum's embrace, compelled by an unseen force. The hair on the back of my neck prickles with awareness. I'm not alone here. I can feel it, a presence watching me from the shadows. It's a feeling I've encountered before, in other haunted places. But here it feels different, more intense, more malevolent. My hand tightens around the crucifix once more, seeking comfort in its familiar weight. But even the touch of holy metal can't completely quell the growing sense of dread that's settling over me. I'm in too deep now. There's no turning back. The first room I enter is what I believe was once a treatment room. The air here is thick with the metallic tang of old blood and something else I can't quite place. A chemical smell, sharp and astringent. It claws at the back of my throat, the stench of madness and despair clinging to the very walls. The rusted remains of a medical table dominate the center of the room, its leather straps cracked and worn with age. I can almost see them, strapped to the table, their eyes wide with terror as the doctors work their dark magic. The air hums with the memory of their suffering, the ghosts of their screams still echoing through the years. My hand trembles as I reach out to touch the cold metal surface. A jolt of energy, sharp and cold, shoots up my arm. I recoil, heart pounding in my chest. This room is alive with the energy of the tormented souls who suffered here. A shiver runs down my spine as I notice the instruments scattered on a nearby tray. Scalpels, bone saws, needles, all crusted with rust and something I desperately hope is just dirt. The tools of madness used to punish and control rather than to heal. Stepping back from the table, I notice strange markings on the wall. Scrawled in what looks like blood or feces, they seem random at first, incoherent scribbles of a tortured mind. But as I look closer, I recognize patterns, almost like symbols. A cold dread grips my heart. Could these be the desperate pleas of a patient, or something more sinister, a message from the other side? Leaving the treatment room, I find myself at the entrance of a long, dimly lit hallway. Dust motes dance in the thin rays of sunlight that pierce through the grime-covered windows, illuminating the peeling paint and crumbling plaster. Each footstep echoes in the oppressive silence, amplifying the sense of unease that hangs heavy in the air. It feels like the asylum itself is holding its breath, watching my every move. As I move deeper into the hallway, I notice something out of the corner of my eye. A fleeting shadow, darker than the surrounding gloom, ducks behind a doorway at the far end of the corridor. I stop, holding my breath, every sense on high alert. My heart pounds against my ribs, a drumbeat of fear in the silence. Hello? My voice sounds small and thin in the vastness of the asylum. Only the echo of my own words answers me. I take a hesitant step forward, then another, drawn towards the shadowy figure by a morbid curiosity I can't seem to shake. As I approach the doorway, I hear a soft, shuffling sound coming from within the room. It sounds almost human, but with a distorted, unnatural quality that sends chills down my spine. I grip the crucifix tightly, drawing strength from its familiar weight. My fingers find the small silver cross at its center, and I clutch it like a lifeline. "Show yourself!" I call out, my voice trembling slightly. The shuffling stops. The room is bare except for a rusted bed frame and a torn, stained mattress. Scratches mark the walls, deep gouges in the plaster that speak of unimaginable rage and despair. The air is thick with a palpable sense of anguish, the lingering echoes of screams that have soaked into the very walls. I can almost hear them, the cries of the tormented souls who were imprisoned here, echoing in the silence. A chill runs down my spine as I step inside, my boots crunching on something I don't want to identify. The air grows colder, and the shadows seem to press in, suffocating me with their unseen presence. I can feel the weight of countless unseen eyes upon me, watching my every move. A wave of nausea washes over me, the overwhelming sense of sorrow and suffering almost too much to bear. I force myself to take a deep breath, the stale, dusty air doing little to calm my racing heart. On the wall, next to the bed, someone has scrawled a message in what looks like blood. The words are frantic, desperate, the chilling last testament of a tortured soul. "They're watching," it reads. "They're always watching." My blood runs cold. I'm not alone here. I haven't been alone this entire time. Something is here with me in this room, lurking just beyond the veil of my perception. The air crackles with unseen energy, and I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I turn slowly, scanning the room, searching for the source of the chilling message. As I turn to leave the cell, my gaze falls upon something I missed before. In the center of the floor, lying amidst the dust and debris, is a child's doll. It's a simple thing, made of porcelain with painted features and a tattered dress. But there's something about it that makes my blood run cold. Perhaps it's the way its lifeless eyes seem to stare right through me, or the unsettling crack that runs across its porcelain face, giving it a grotesque, almost pained expression. I cautiously approach the doll, my heart pounding in my chest. The air grows colder with each step, and I can feel a presence, heavy and oppressive, settling over me. I kneel down, keeping a safe distance, and examine the doll more closely. Its once vibrant dress is now faded and torn, its limbs scratched and worn with age. But it's the eyes that truly unsettle me. They're wide and staring, their blue irises flecked with something that looks almost like real tears. The doll seems to be watching me, its gaze filled with a sorrow and despair that sends shivers down my spine. I can't shake the feeling that this is more than just a discarded toy. It feels important somehow, like it's a key to unlocking the dark secrets of this place. A wave of sadness washes over me, and I find myself inexplicably drawn to the doll. I reach out a trembling hand and gently pick it up, cradling it in my palms. As soon as my fingers brush against its cold porcelain skin, I'm flooded with images, flashes of a young girl, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes wide with terror as she clutches the doll tightly to her chest. The air crackles with unseen energy, and the temperature plummets. I can feel a presence behind me, cold and menacing, like a whisper of ice against the back of my neck. The feeling is so overwhelming, so suffocating, that I can barely breathe. My heart pounds against my ribs, a frantic rhythm against the suffocating silence. Slowly I turn, my every sense on high alert, bracing myself for the unknown, but there's nothing there. Only the empty hallway stretching out before me like a maw of darkness. Yet the feeling of being watched persists, a palpable weight pressing down on me, stealing my breath. I can feel my resolve crumbling, the edges of my sanity fraying under the oppressive weight of the unseen. The doll in my hand suddenly feels unbearably cold, its porcelain skin like ice against my own. Its eyes, once filled with a childlike innocence, now seem to burn with an unnatural intensity, reflecting a darkness that chills me to my core. I realize with a growing horror that I'm not alone in this hallway. Something is here, something ancient and evil, and it's been watching me this entire time. Fear, raw and primal, surges through me, urging me to run. My instincts scream at me to flee, to escape this place before it consumes me entirely. But I find myself rooted to the spot, frozen in place by a terror so profound that it transcends even my desire for self-preservation. I am caught in its web, a fly ensnared in the silken threads of a spider's trap. I stumble back, dropping the doll with a clatter that echoes through the hallway. The sound seems to break the spell, the oppressive presence lifting slightly. My heart pounds in my ears as I scramble to my feet, my gaze darting around the hallway, searching for the source of the unseen terror, but there's nothing there. The hallway is empty, silent, yet the feeling of being watched lingers, a phantom touch on the back of my neck. I need to get out of this hallway, out of this building. My every instinct screams at me to flee, to escape the suffocating darkness that seems to be closing in. I turn and run, my footsteps echoing on the cold, hard floor, the sound of my own fear spurring me onward. I don't stop running until I reach the relative safety of a large, open room at the end of the corridor. It's the old nurse's station, I realize, my breath coming in ragged gasps. A long counter stretches along one wall, littered with dusty files and broken glass. The air hangs heavy with the ghosts of conversations past, the whispers of nurses and doctors long gone. I can almost hear them, their voices a low murmur beneath the creaking of the building, discussing treatments, prognoses, the slow descent into madness. My gaze falls upon a dusty ledger lying open on the counter. Its pages are yellowed with age, the ink faded, but I can still make out the neat script. Patient names, dates, diagnoses, a chilling chronicle of the human suffering that unfolded within these walls. I reach out, my fingers tracing the faded ink, a cold dread settling over me. My fingers trace the faded ink of the ledger, stopping on a name circled in red. Mary Blackwood. The name sends a shiver down my spine, a cold whisper against my soul. It's the same name I saw scrawled on the wall of the padded cell, the desperate plea of a tortured soul. Coincidence, or something more? Flipping through the brittle pages, I find her file. The black and white photograph stapled to the corner of the page shows a young woman, her eyes wide and haunted, her lips pulled tight in a grimace that could be either fear or defiance. The diagnosis, scrawled in a doctor's neat hand, sends a chill down my spine. Delusions of grandeur, schizophrenia. The notes beneath paint a disturbing picture of a young woman slowly unraveling, her grip on reality slipping away day by day. She spoke of shadows, of whispers, of something watching her from the darkness. The doctors dismissed it as madness, but as I read her words, I can't shake the feeling that Mary Blackwood saw something real, something sinister, lurking beneath the surface of this place. A sudden noise from the hallway outside snaps me out of my thoughts. It's a soft sound, a shuffling like footsteps approaching. My heart leaps into my throat, my blood turning to ice. I'm not alone. Someone or something is out there. Panic surges through me, cold and sharp. I glance around the nurse's station, desperately seeking an escape, a hiding place. But there's nowhere to go. The room is a cage, its windows barred, its door hanging precariously from its hinges. I'm trapped. Then I remember the padded cell. There was a small, cramped space behind the torn padding, barely big enough to squeeze into. It wouldn't offer much protection, but it was better than nothing. I dart back down the hallway, my breath catching in my throat, the ledger clutched tightly in my hand. The shuffling sound grows louder, closer. I reach the cell and scramble inside, squeezing into the cramped space behind the padding. My heart pounds against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. The air is thick with the stench of mildew and decay, but I don't dare breathe. I can hear the footsteps just outside the door now, slow, deliberate, like something stalking its prey. Then silence. I hold my breath, not daring to move a muscle. Minutes tick by, each one stretching into an eternity. The silence is almost worse than the sound of the footsteps. It's a heavy, oppressive silence, filled with the weight of unseen eyes and the knowledge that I am not alone. As my eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through the cracks in the padding, I notice something I missed before. Scratched into the wall, almost invisible beneath years of grime and neglect, is a message. It's faint, but I can just make out the words, scrawled in a hand shaky with fear. Beware the Shadow Man. The air grows colder, the silence deepening into an oppressive weight that seems to crush the air from my lungs. My heart pounds against my ribs, a frantic rhythm against the suffocating stillness. The message, "Beware the Shadow Man," echoes in my mind, a chilling premonition that sends a wave of fear washing over me. Who or what is the Shadow Man? Suddenly a cold mist seeps into the room, swirling around me like a living entity. The air crackles with static electricity, raising goosebumps on my skin. The hair on the back of my neck stands on end, every instinct screaming at me to flee. But I'm rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a terror so profound that it transcends even my desire for self-preservation. Then, I see him. A figure, tall and imposing, coalescing from the shadows at the end of the hallway. He's shrouded in darkness, his features obscured by the gloom, but I can make out the outline of a man, his form as solid and unyielding as stone. He wears a long coat like a doctor's, and in his hand he clutches something that glints in the dim light. A scalpel, a syringe, a wave of dizziness washes over me, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood and something else, something ancient and evil. The figure takes a step closer, and I glimpse his face for the briefest of moments. It's a face contorted in a rictus of rage and madness, eyes burning with an unnatural intensity that seems to pierce through the very fabric of my soul. Terror, raw and primal, surges through me, urging me to run, to scream, to do anything but remain trapped in this nightmare. But I'm frozen in place, my limbs heavy as lead, my voice stuck in my throat. The figure takes another step closer, and the shadows around him seem to writhe and contort, as if alive, feeding off my fear. He stops just outside the padded cell, his form almost completely solid now. The grotesque details of his face are horrifyingly clear. The sunken eyes, the skeletal cheeks, the lipless mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. His gaze bores into me, filled with a malevolence so pure, so ancient, that it seems to leach the warmth from my very core. He raises his hand, the glint of metal catching the dim light. It's a scalpel, its blade long and wickedly sharp. He runs a pale skeletal finger along the edge, drawing a thin line of crimson that stands out starkly against his deathly pallor. A low chuckle rumbles deep within his chest, devoid of humor, filled only with a cold, calculating cruelty. "You shouldn't be here," he rasps, his voice a dry whisper that seems to claw at the edges of my sanity. "This place, it doesn't forget, it doesn't forgive." Panic threatens to overwhelm me, but a primal instinct for survival kicks in. I scramble back, pressing myself against the cold, damp wall, searching desperately for an escape, but there's nowhere to go. I'm trapped, cornered like prey before a predator, and the Shadow Man is closing in for the kill. Adrenaline surges through me, a raw burst of energy in the face of unimaginable terror. I can't fight him, not physically. He's too strong, too consumed by whatever darkness fuels him. But maybe, just maybe, I can distract him. Buy myself a few precious seconds to escape the clutches of this nightmare. "Mary!" I cry out, the name ripped from my throat in a desperate plea. "Mary Blackwood, he's here! He's come for you!" The Shadow Man hesitates, a flicker of surprise crossing his grotesque features. The scalpel wavers in his hand, and for a moment, the oppressive weight of his presence lessens, the suffocating air becoming a fraction easier to breathe. He turns his head slightly as if listening for something, his gaze shifting from me to the empty hallway beyond. It's a small victory, but enough. Enough to give me a sliver of hope in this maelstrom of fear. I scramble back, pressing myself further into the damp, crumbling wall, seeking any advantage, any escape from the nightmare unfolding before me. My hand closes around something hard and cold on the floor. The ledger, Mary Blackwood's file. The Shadow Man turns back to me, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "Silence!" he hisses, his voice like nails scraping against a chalkboard. There's no escape, no sanctuary from the darkness that claims all who enter this place. He lunges towards me, the scalpel glinting menacingly in the dim light. Time seems to slow to a crawl, each heartbeat a deafening roar in my ears. There's no time to think, only to react. As the Shadow Man lunges, I fling the ledger at him with all my strength. The heavy book, its pages filled with the weight of Mary Blackwood's torment, catches him squarely in the chest. He stumbles back with a surprised grunt, the scalpel clattering to the floor. The ledger falls open as it hits the ground, illuminated by a stray shaft of moonlight that pierces through a crack in the boarded-up window. My eyes are drawn to a page, its edges singed with age, the ink faded but still legible. It's a handwritten note, scrawled in a frantic hand, the words practically screaming from the page. The Shadow Man. He fears the light of truth. Truth. What truth? What did Mary Blackwood know that could possibly hold power over this creature of darkness? My gaze falls on the photograph of Mary, her eyes staring out from the page filled with a haunting sadness, a knowledge beyond her years. And then it hits me. The answer has been right in front of me this entire time. Mary's file, her diagnosis. The doctors called it delusions of grandeur. But what if they were wrong? What if Mary wasn't delusional, but rather she saw the truth about this place, about the Shadow Man, a truth they refused to acknowledge? The Shadow Man lets out a roar of rage, the sound echoing through the asylum, shaking the very foundation of the building. He scrambles for the scalpel, his long, skeletal fingers closing around the bone handle. "You meddle in things you don't understand," he snarls, his voice dripping with venom. But it's too late. He may have silenced Mary Blackwood in life, but in death, her voice will be heard. A cold wind whips through the asylum, extinguishing the single flickering light bulb that illuminated the hallway, plunging us into darkness. A chorus of whispers filled with pain and rage rise from the shadows, swirling around the shadow man like a vortex of despair. He shrinks back, his eyes wide with fear, the scalpel falling from his grasp as a new presence asserts itself in the room. A spectral figure begins to solidify behind him, a young woman with fiery eyes and an expression of righteous fury etched upon her face. It's Mary Blackwood, no longer the timid girl from the photograph, but a force of nature, her spirit fueled by decades of suffering and a thirst for vengeance. "You!" she screams, her voice echoing through the asylum, filled with a power that sends chills down my spine. "You took everything from me, tortured me, silenced me, but no more. You will pay for your crimes against me, against all who suffered within these walls." The Shadow Man cowers before her, his arrogance replaced by a primal fear that leeches the darkness from his features, revealing the withered husk of a man beneath. "No, stay back," he pleads, his voice a whimper. "I am the darkness. I am the fear. You have no power over me." Mary Blackwood laughs, a chilling sound that seems to claw at the edges of sanity, and in that moment I realize the truth. The Shadow Man may thrive on darkness, but Mary, she is the embodiment of its opposite. She is the light that shines even brighter in the face of despair, the hope that refuses to be extinguished, the love that transcends even the deepest darkness. She raises her hand, and a blinding light emanates from her, engulfing the Shadow Man in a wave of pure cleansing energy. He screams, a sound filled with agony and despair, as the light washes over him, stripping away the darkness, revealing the pathetic, withered creature beneath. I shield my eyes from the blinding light, but I can't tear my gaze away from the spectacle unfolding before me. The Shadow Man writhes and contorts, his form flickering in and out of existence as the light strips away his power, his very essence. His screams echo through the empty halls of the asylum, a chorus of pain and despair that chills me to my core. And then, as quickly as it began, the light fades. The Shadow Man is gone, vanished without a trace, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and the lingering echoes of his screams. The spectral figure of Mary Blackwood shimmers for a moment longer, her features softening, a look of peace settling upon her face. She turns to me, her eyes filled with a profound sadness, yet also a glimmer of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice a soft breeze rustling through the empty halls. "You helped me find my voice, my strength. You helped me find peace." I want to speak, to ask her so many questions, to understand the horrors she endured, the power she wielded, but the words catch in my throat, choked by a mixture of awe and terror. I can only nod, my heart pounding in my chest, my entire body trembling with the aftershocks of the encounter. Mary smiles sadly, then turns and begins to fade, her form becoming translucent, her edges blurring like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. "This place, it holds on to the darkness," she whispers, her voice growing fainter. "But there is light here too, if you know where to look." And then, she's gone, vanished like a wisp of smoke, leaving me alone in the darkness, the echo of her words hanging in the air. I stand there for a long moment, unsure of what to do, what to think. The silence is deafening, broken only by the creaking of the building and the pounding of my own heart. I stumble out of the padded cell, back into the hallway, my senses overwhelmed. The asylum seems different now, somehow lighter, as if a weight has been lifted. The air is still heavy with the weight of sorrow and madness, but there's a faint glimmer of hope now, a sense that even in the darkest of places, redemption is possible. As I make my way out of the asylum and into the cold light of dawn, I glance back one last time at the imposing structure. And for a fleeting moment, I could have sworn I saw her, a young woman with fiery eyes and a serene smile, standing at the topmost window, watching me go. Then, she was gone, and the asylum stood silent once more, its secrets locked away, its darkness held at bay. But I knew, deep down, that I would never forget what I had witnessed within its walls, the horror, the despair, and ultimately, the triumph of light over darkness. The engine sputters, the old Jeep struggling to life as I pull away from the crumbling gates of Cranbrook. Dawn paints the sky in hues of purple and orange, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness I leave behind. Yet, the rising sun brings little warmth to the chill that has seeped deep into my bones. The weight of the night, of the horrors witnessed, presses down on me, heavier than any physical burden. The silence in the Jeep is deafening. I long for the comforting hum of the radio, for the normalcy of the outside world, but I hesitate to break the silence. Every creak of the Jeep, every rustle of leaves in the wind, sounds like a whispered threat, a reminder that the darkness I encountered isn't easily left behind. The asylum shrinks in the rearview mirror, becoming a distant silhouette against the growing light. Part of me wants to believe it was all a nightmare, a waking dream fueled by the legends and stories that drew me to Cranbrook. But the lingering chill, the echoes of Mary's screams, the chilling image of the Shadow Man, are all too real, forever seared into my memory. I grip the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and force myself to focus on the road ahead. The journey back to civilization seems endless, the miles stretching out like an unforgiving desert. Every passing car, every glimpse of human life feels like a beacon in the darkness, a reassurance that the world outside Cranbrook still exists. As I drive, my gaze involuntarily shifts to the passenger seat. Mary's doll, the one I found discarded in the padded cell, sits propped against the door, its porcelain face eerily illuminated by the dashboard lights. It's an unsettling sight, a constant reminder of the innocent souls who suffered within those walls, and of the darkness that still lingers there. I had found the doll on the floor of the Jeep as I prepared to leave Cranbrook. It hadn't been there before, I'm certain of it. A chill had run down my spine as I picked it up, its porcelain skin cold to the touch, its lifeless eyes staring accusingly into mine. I should have left it there, I know, but something held me back. Perhaps it was a sense of obligation to Mary, a desire to honor her memory by taking something, anything, out of that godforsaken place. Or maybe it was something more primal, a fear of what might happen if I left the doll behind, a fear that it might serve as a conduit, a beacon, drawing the Shadow Man out of the darkness and into my world. Whatever the reason, the doll sits beside me now, a silent passenger on this journey back to normalcy. And as the miles tick by, I can't shake the feeling that I've brought something back from Cranbrook, something more than just a haunted doll. The sun is well above the horizon by the time I reach the outskirts of civilization. The sight of houses, streetlights, and the flow of traffic is both comforting and jarring. The world outside Cranbrook feels alien now, too bright, too loud, too alive. I pull into a roadside diner, drawn by the promise of hot coffee and human interaction. The bell above the door jingles as I enter, a jarring sound in the aftermath of the oppressive silence of the asylum. The diner is mostly empty at this hour, just a handful of truckers and early risers nursing coffee and conversation. I take a seat at the counter, my back to the wall, my senses on high alert. Still half expecting the shadows to come alive, the whispers to start anew. The waitress, a kind-faced woman with tired eyes, greets me with a weary smile. I order coffee, black and strong, hoping to chase away the lingering chill and the haunting images that plague my mind. As I wait for my coffee, I notice a strange, stinging sensation on my hand. I glance down and my blood runs cold. Thin, red scratches mar the back of my hand, scratches that weren't there before. They're shallow, more like scrapes than deep wounds, but the sight of them sends a shiver down my spine. I try to rationalize, to convince myself that I must have scratched myself on something back at the asylum. But deep down, I know the truth. The Shadow Man, Mary's tormentor, may be gone, but he left his mark on me, a reminder that some wounds run deeper than flesh and bone. The coffee arrives, steaming and fragrant, a welcome anchor to the familiar world. I wrap my hands around the warm mug, drawing comfort from the heat. The simple act of holding something tangible, something real. The bitter liquid washes away the stale taste of fear and dust, but the knot in my stomach remains, a constant reminder of the darkness I encountered. The diner's hum of conversation, the clatter of dishes, the sizzle of bacon on the grill, all serve as a balm to my frayed nerves. I find myself eavesdropping on the conversations around me, clinging to the mundane details of everyday life, the normalcy I so desperately crave. A trucker talks about the weather, a group of teenagers argue about the latest pop star, the waitress complains about her aching feet. It's all so ordinary, so unremarkable, yet to my ears it's a symphony of life, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of the unknown. I close my eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to quiet the storm raging within me. The encounter at Cranbrook has shaken me to my core, leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew about the world, about the boundaries between the living and the dead, the seen and the unseen. The warmth of the coffee spreads through me, a small comfort in the face of the vast, unknowable darkness. I know that what I experienced at Cranbrook will stay with me, a haunting reminder of the fragility of sanity, the seductive power of fear. But I also know that I have to find a way to move on, to reconcile the darkness with the light, to find solace in the knowledge that even in the face of unimaginable horror, the human spirit can endure.